Hi, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Creating Resilience, a series in which you are paramount to our entire discussion because we're speaking about all the things that concern not only creating resilience for ourselves, but for everyone else as well. And the whole idea is that we need to start learning to adapt as human beings, just like the earth is adapting to our own presence and to everything that we do here. It's constantly restructuring itself and adapting. We need to do likewise. We need to make sure that we are in charge of the responses to circumstances which we cannot control. And there will be many such circumstances. So rather than freaking out and creating drama around it, I believe very strongly in creating resilience in our lives so that we simply adapt and we move on and we enjoy the outcome, because I do believe that we live in a very generous universe, and the universe does not create anything that we do not benefit from. What we do is create the things we don't like, and we do not even realize we're doing it. So, with that in mind, we're looking to see if what do we do as human beings? Do we go on as before, or do we start doing things differently? And if we're doing things differently, what can we do? Give us your opinion. If you have something you'd like to add to this conversation, please. And I'm going to bring in the rest of the team now. And here is Lisa, who is our
Hello.
art of daily living. Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, I love what you said, Dorit. Do we just cling to the past and hold on for dear life, or do we evolve? And evolution is so important. I know that it can be very scary, but where we were heading, I don't think is um, truly where we want to go. I mean, I think we just need to allow ourselves to construct new possibilities. And that's what's exciting about this time. I feel like we're in a very powerful time, a painful time, but also a time of excitement and possibility. There's all of that going on. So I'm excited.
So let's look at that whole idea of a painful time, because pain is, like we said last time, that my amazing mentor and teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, said, pain is inevitable.
Mhm.
It's part of the daily living. If you want to have pain, you want to have pain, because if you don't have pain, you won't have joy. You can't have one without the other. So if we are going to be having joy only and no pain, then what that actually means is that we only want to see one side of the same coin, and it means we won't enjoy the joy when it actually shows up. So, with that in mind, we go to Vanessa, who today is wearing a tiara.
It's my birthday, so I'm wearing a tiara because what better time? So I have a question, basically to all of you everywhere in the world. And my question is Mother Nature in a codependent, abusive relationship with humans? Because I just wonder if I personally were Mother Nature. Now, granted, I don't have her wisdom and depth and scope, but if I were in a relationship that were consistently so abusive and taking me for granted and chopping my children down, and abuse and violence and warfare, slaughterhouses, pollution, doing all these just dreadful things. And then here we have this pandemic that animal agriculture has caused, and we're trying to solve the pandemic by creating more toxins to inject into our systems rather than looking at the origin and learning from what Mother Nature is trying to tell us. So I'm just wondering, do I need to do a little therapy here? Do I need to do an intervention? Is Mother Nature taking too much, or as is probably more likely the case, she has a plan and she knows what she's doing, and is trying to give us more and more subtle hints and suggestions and fires. You're not listening. Okay, more fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, like rising water levels, just giving us more and more so that we actually learn from it. Because as Dorit said, the universe doesn't want us to suffer. but we can learn from all these different experiences, and the generosity of Mother Nature to have put up with so much and up until this point. I just think there's so much richness there that we can learn from to restructure how we live, how we approach each other, the planet. It's a great time to learn more compassion, and I'm hoping that collectively enough of us will have that message that we'll be able to create these kind of changes in a very exciting, pivotal time where we're in this portal where we can, really have that chance to transform how we interact.
So, Paige, you are up next, and thinking about what Vanessa just said and what we were saying at the beginning, Lisa and I, how would you like to give your own take on that?
Will you repeat the question for me?
So, not really a question, it's really a discussion of, are we actually here on Earth allowed to continue with what we've been doing? Is it okay to just trudge along as we've been and then just hope for the best and expect to only experience joy at every turn? Or do we need then to change our own perception of what life is? Or we to welcome the pain and embrace it? And then because we do that, then when the joy comes in, we can fully embrace that too.
Okay, well, what came to mind is bring my sound bowl in. It just felt like the right time, so I'm just going to.
That's one of the clearest ones I've ever heard.
And this is the color and the symbol for our throat chakra, which is about speaking up, finding our power, being clear in our power. And the reason I bring that in is because I feel that, hi, Lisa, I feel that we, more than ever, need to find a way to communicate powerfully. So there are so many light workers on this planet working very hard to bring about change. And I've been thinking about this, actually. It's interesting. We should be bringing up Mother Nature, because I feel like we have been taking so much from Mother Nature. We've been taking so much from this earth. And in my 54 years of life, probably the last 5 years, I've been the most conscious. But up until that point, I took and took and took and took and took. And now I feel like it's my time to give back and to do my best to help the planet. And every day, I have the opportunity to pivot and shift, and I'm on a trajectory of learning and growing, and I don't have the answers. That's why I love this conversation, because it's like coming to me. I come to this group, and it's okay, Paige. What are you going to change this week? What am I going to take on this week? This is an opportunity for you to be real with yourself. Sit yourself down, get real, get connected to yourself deeply, and then go forth. So I feel if each individual person were to take inventory on how we are literally pillaging from the planet and how we can shift and pivot, then we could shift to a better planet. Right now, we are headed in a downward spiral, if you ask me.
Yes, I think every single thing shows us that, but we've also been given lots of opportunities to change and lots of opportunities to adapt. And this show is one of them. I fully claim this show to be one of them. And Lisa, the reason why I did put you on the screen when Paige showed us her, Paige, could you bring up that bowl again, please? Lisa, could you please bring up what you had on at the beginning of the show? Because I wanted you to bring that up. I thought that would have been perfect after Paige said that. That's why I put you on the screen. So I'm going to put you both on again. So Paige, say what you were saying before, please, because that was really important.
Yeah, this bowl, the color and the symbol represents our throat chakra, and the sound is bringing about the vibration. The intention is to bring about the vibration within our throat chakra. So here we go. One more time.
Thank you. And the throat chakra is about communication, Lisa. What were you showing us today?
Yes, it's funny because I drew a card for us. I like to, reflect on
Can you bring
what.
it up again, Lisa? Closer to the
Yeah,
screen,
yeah.
please. To the center. Yes. Thank you.
Speak up.
Yes.
Speak up. So it's throat chakra, it's speaking up. And what this card says essentially is really releasing anything that is getting away from our own authenticity and our truth and being who we are. And I think that's a part of resilience when we're trying to mask ourselves and not speak our truth and go with what is easy, not easy, but the path of the group, right? When we become sheep and we don't state what we need or how to serve the planet, we create hardship for ourselves and for the world. So I think the more we strip down what we think we need, what we think we should say, and really own who we are and our truth, the more we create an amazing and beautiful planet.
So I was just speaking with someone before this with whom I had a meeting, and she was saying to me something very similar, that none of us benefits when we just follow along with the herd and we try to become like everyone else and do as everyone else. But then I was saying, but if you do your own thing and you do you, you're seen very often as being the odd person out, not in a way that is commendable, but in other words, what can we do to bring him or her back into the herd? You know, how do we pull somebody back in, and how do we make sure they only think this way, see these things this way, see my way? We were talking about the fact that many people is my way or the highway. And she brought that up. And I said, that's because most people do not have any experience of themselves, an authentic experience of themselves. They experience themselves through their parents, through their teachers, through a lot of television in this country, and US definitely through television and ads and consumerism. And that's the only way they experience themselves. And that is why I believe there's a lot of suicide at this time of the year and around what people call the holidays. Maybe we should need to start taking a look at that and drift away from it and live differently. And if somebody wants to go ahead and do that, fine, perfectly fine. Let them do it and celebrate them for doing it and be okay with them doing it. But if you don't wish to, then who is to say that something is wrong with you? And it's interesting because I'm very, very fortunate in that I always had my own sense of self, and then I always led. I've never been a follower. I'm sure I'm a follower to some degree, because otherwise, why would I still be in the United States? Because there is a reason to be in the United States right now. I think it's a very interesting time to be in the United States, and it's actually one of the most productive times, I think, because things are falling apart here, and the more things fall apart is the more we find ourselves, if we really focus on creating resiliency and we focus on the internal rather than on the external, and we simply use the external as an impetus, as almost a calling card to work more internally. So Vanessa, you are up next.
Yes, I actually wanted to comment on that and on throat issues and how powerful that whole throat chakra image is, which is that when I was a kid, my parents always were forcing me to eat animals. And when I was being true to myself, I just knew I didn't want to eat them. I didn't know why. I was a little kid and I didn't know why, but I just didn't want that in my system. This taste, the smell, the texture, everything just revolted me about it. And they wouldn't let me get up from table if I didn't eat my meat. And I would do everything. I would cheek it and spit it out. I would put it down my shirt. I'd put it under my plate. I'd do everything to avoid it. And at the same time, I had constant throat infections. Constant. That was my area. It was always throat. I was getting sick all the time. And I then later developed not necessarily hypothyroid, but Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition that attacks the thyroid in the neck. So it just seems to me that when that was my physical manifestation of, you're forcing things down my throat, not letting me be who I am. And I'm not able to do what I want and to say what I want. And when I was 12, apparently my parents said, I said no more, and I flat out refused, and I just wouldn't eat it anymore. So that, I think the throat chakra is so powerful. And when we suppress who we are and we don't let ourselves be, there are things that manifest there. Certainly did in my case. And the other thing about being here, being a follower versus a leader, and also the notion that when we're true to ourselves, people see that we're an oddball, like you're not part of the herd. And I think that is essential to the capitalist consumerist society that we are the epitome of. And sadly, China is kind of going in that direction, and certain other countries have headed more in that direction. It is essential that you be a follower and that you follow and join into what the mentality is. And I'm trying to avoid animal images. I don't want to say herd mentality, because animals do things collaboratively. They don't have that mentality we do, and when we anthropomorphize them, it's a human thing to blindly follow. They cannot sell us all the products that keep our economy going if we're too independent, we're too centered, we feel too good about ourselves. The car, the house, the bigger this, bigger that, get a bigger loan, get this lipstick, get this skincare, weight loss, all these things so that you conform and so that you're malleable and you keep that power structure going that we're all participating in. We're all participating here. And I think this country is the master of keeping us all in line so that we all feel inadequate and we all strive to have this image that they're telling us is what we should be. And that keeps the machine going so that we keep buying things to fuel our sense of inadequacy that we think is going to be satisfied if we're like the image that they sell us. So I do think that when we start breaking free from that, and when we start refusing to conform to dominant narratives, and we refuse to engage in that capitalist consumer society, that's when there's more of a malaise and a discomfort living here, but there's also more of that empowerment and that sense of being more fully who you are. You're more fully inhabiting yourself. You're going inwards to really hear more and tune in more. And that's one of the reasons I think you can do that anywhere, even in this kind of society. I think even in America, we can do that because there are enough people trying to do that to create change. But it's also a reason many people want to leave this country, me included, looking to move out of this country in the next year.
So if one is struggling right now with this sense of inadequacy, what do you all recommend? How would you all recommend that person proceed forward in creating resilience for themselves? Because inadequacy is a form of non-resilience. It means you don't feel resilient. You do not feel confident enough that you have the tools in which to maneuver and to manage your life. And then again, is managing our lives enough? Is that really enough? For example, I hear a lot about managing diabetes. I've never gotten over that expression. I find that one of the most vile expressions is managing a disease or managing an illness. We are not a disease. Nobody's a disease. We are not cancer. We're not diabetes, nor are we a virus. We are human beings, and as such, we have the capacity to grow, evolve, and actually, most of us, if we accept it, we have the capacity to shine, and shine so brightly that the light that's within us, that was there from the moment of conception, suddenly begins to outpace us, where it becomes what we follow, that internal light, rather than we waiting for others to tell us how to act, what to do. But the thing is that when we live authentically, other people feel hurt. Other people want us to react a certain way to them, respond a certain way, do certain things that they expect from us. And when we do not do it because we're following our own truths and our own inner guidance, our own inner light, they feel offended or hurt. And I believe you've got to be in a place of feeling offended to feel offense, to take offense of anything. If you are not in a place of feeling offended already, and it has nothing to do with anybody else, it has to do that you're offended by your own self, by the way, and your own lack of truth and your own lack of resilience in your life, which you don't need to feel that, because the truth of the matter is we're all in the same boat here in this, what I call the pea soup of life. And the only way to really feel adequate is to be yourself and know your adequacy. You need to confront it, to build it, to nurture it, and to live it. So how do we do that? I'm going to go to Lisa.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So another card I drew today for us is
in front of your face. Put it in front of your face, Lisa, and turn it to your right. Turn it to your right slightly. Turn it. Yes, thank you.
So you guys can see it's a mask card, basically, from the circus deck, which I love. I call it a cruelty-free circus deck. I feel like the key with the card and the key with where we're going with our discussion, in my perception, is when we take those masks off, and sometimes we don't know we're wearing them. It's, sometimes we wear them because it's just so instinctive for us. It's something we've learned or something that we think we should do, and the problem with the masks is it robs people of the opportunity to really know who we are and to truly connect with others and to allow them to feel safe in our presence. And when we live on a world where we're carefully curating our life through social media, with the perfect house and the perfect partner and the perfect clothes and the perfect life, people then don't feel safe when they have feelings of isolation or depression or anxiety. And I think it's really important to let people know, sometimes we're not doing well, and that's okay. That's a part of the human experience. And when we create these disconnects with people, we rob people of the opportunity to be who they are by doing that with ourselves. So the more we remind ourselves it's okay to share, I'm not doing great today, or I feel sad today, or whatever our vulnerability is, the more we give people the opportunity to really connect and feel empowered to do that with themselves and to really create a world of true connection. Because I feel like a lot of this consumerism really is a replacement for not feeding our souls. I think that, when the more we, like Vanessa was talking about, we're just kind of buying things or doing things because we're being programmed. And the more we know who we are, the less we need those things.
Yes, exactly so. The more we know who we are. And we need to keep reacquainting ourselves with who we are, because we keep growing and we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And the deeper we get is the more astonished we realize, because what I, through meditation, have realized a lot of, and through silence and eating only vibrant foods that are alive, is that, and watching my own thought patterns and changing those, is that the deeper I go within, the more I realize that I am not, that I do not exist. And it's quite an astonishing moment. And then begin to question, well, who's listening here? Who's thinking? And every time that I ask that question of myself, it's pretty shocking what ensues, because one begins to realize that the person who's listening and thinking and talking at the same time might not even exist. And there's a bigger existence than that. There's a whole world beyond thinking and listening. And I have given up beliefs because I believe that beliefs hold us back. And if you ever hear me use the word I believe, please let me know right away and give me a check-in call. So I remember to stop using it, because it's one of the things that I've been really giving up a lot, is the belief systems. And just experiment with what I know works for me rather than leave it. So, and because what works for me now might not work for me weekends. So if I believe something, then it means I'm not ready and willing to be open to a different way of being in the world. So what page would you like to add to this? Because you actually opened up with the throat chakra, which is the chakra of communication.
Yes. Well, first of all, Lisa, what you said, I always know there's the confirmation chills, I call them, goosebumps, confirmation chills, or heat. So I started to get really hot when you were talking, Lisa, about authenticity. And the peeling away layers, that what you said about there was a day during this quarantine, I posted something on somebody's page or whatever. I said, I haven't gotten out of bed in weeks. And I immediately got phone calls. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I went, well, I haven't gotten out of bed, although I've been working and I've been walking, but I've been in bed doing it. There's something about the comfort. I've set up an office space in my bed. And some days I literally work there for hours. And I get things done. And they were concerned about me, my health and well-being. And there may be something to be concerned about. But I feel like what I've distinguished is that it's helped me. My world got bigger with news, with what I do for a career, with reporting news with Jane Unchained News Network. And my world got bigger with the realities of what's happening in the animal agriculture. And so I noticed I needed to make my personal world smaller and cozier to deal with it. So that's what I've come to realize. By the end of the year, there was nothing wrong. It's just what I did as an adaptation to be able to handle all the news that I'm bombarded with, let's say. And I choose this. I choose this way of, I choose this lifestyle. I choose to be the one who's booking these guests and so forth. So I do recognize that. What I'm pointing to and what I feel I resonated with was the authenticity, that letting our guards down and saying, hey, I'm not doing so great today. I'm in bed. I am working, but I have been in bed. Or I'm comfort eating. I'm comfort eating. That's the bottom line. I've been doing it for the whole 9 months. And that's a way, so that's what I have to say there. Yeah.
Thank you for that, because I'm always astonished when somebody says I'm not feeling well, or like you said, I'm in bed, I've not gotten out of bed. People are like, oh my God, are you okay? It's okay to not be okay. In fact, it's great to not be okay. I don't see how we can possibly be okay when people are being evicted, when people jobs have been taken away from them, they have no health care, and their health care is tied up only to having a job which they hated anyway, when so much is going on that is cruel. How can we be okay? Shouldn't it be why are you okay? Should we be asking, why are you okay? Rather than, are you okay? No, it's why are you okay? So you'll never hear me asking somebody that, are you okay? Because I think what I do ask is, things like, do you need anything from me in your non-okayness? Do you need me to be not okay, as or to go with you there where you are? That's how we support each other, is delving into the pits of the stomach and into the parts of ourselves that are a bit on the messy side, because life can be very messy. And I have said this time and time again, we're just little balls of dust and energy rolling along here, and we may as well get familiar with the dust and be part of the mess and part of the dirt, because that's who we are. Get dirty. And that, to me, is one of the quickest ways to create resilience, is to accept that of ourselves. And this whole focus on being overly sanitized, I think we need to be careful with that. I mean, we need to be sanitary, and we need to be sanitary to make sure that we are not overburning our systems. But the truth of the matter is, if our microbiomes were fully intact, it wouldn't matter. We could do whatever and we'd be fine. It's because we are not eating and living the life where our microbiome is the most, is what pushes us to eat, to sleep, to drink, to move. That's what really creates the problem. So then we feel that we are at the mercy of the external because the internal is not there to support us. We have been given everything we need for life on this earth to prosper and to flourish and to thrive. And we have totally and completely either ignored it, turned our backs on it, or we've shut it down, by shutting ourselves down. And in doing so, we do not realize that we have the power within us. And we can return to that space really quickly and easily. And that's how we create resilience, in my humble opinion. So please, Lisa, you're on.
I love what Paige shared, because I just got goosebumps too when she was talking about, how she likes to be in bed. You can see I'm in my bed. It is a comfortable space. It is, I think it just takes me back to the womb, where I'm surrounded just by peace. That's how I view bed. And you're right, Dorit. To say that you're doing amazing when there is suffering going on is not necessarily fair. But also, I just had this discussion with some friends of mine over New Year's. We did a Zoom call, and one of my friends is very, very active and amazing and really making changes in the world. And I think the weight of that experience has been really hard on her. And I have been fortunate that I have been really seeking out things that are renewing to me. I've been feeding my spirit with photography. I've been walking and exercising and doing things that I just never gave myself permission to do because I just simply didn't have the time. I was traveling a lot prior to the pandemic. And so this time has been a really deeply beautiful time for me, but it's also, I'm also aware it's a hard time for our planet. It's a hard time for the world. It's certainly, but I do feel like a strong responsibility to give light right now. I feel like that's how I can serve. It's not that I'm denying that this is a challenging time, but I feel like shining light is important also.
Yes, and might I offer, Lisa, that because there are a lot of challenges now, yes, it is a beautiful time. It's not but or yet. That's what's so beautiful about it, that we're all being challenged en masse. It's not just one person who is holding all the challenges at the moment. It's en masse. We've been given it all together. So we're all in it together. So to me, I find that very, very exciting. And yes, and of course people are languishing and people are dying. We're all dying, by the way, just so you all know. Every day we move a little closer to it. So if we would only, we have I put together a list of topics, and one of them is about death and dying, because I think we have a very, what Vanessa talked about dysfunctional relationships earlier, or alluded to that. We have a very dysfunctional relationship with dying, which means we have a dysfunctional relationship with living, and it's because we do not know how to live while we fear death. And that's why I have it as a topic for us. And that topic will probably go on for quite a while, because I think that is something which most of us really are so disinformed about or misinformed about or so in fear of that we don't even wish to do it. And I would like, when we address it, to do a meditation for everyone that day. I put together meditation years ago for dying. And to me, it is the most life-affirming meditation that there is. I don't think I remember all of it because I haven't used it in a while. I did it for some clients, and I found that it really worked wonders for me too. Even though I first did it for my clients, but I trust that the universe will bring it back to me in the way it's meant to be. So I would like to offer that as well. And I think we're going to be actually offering some more meditations here this year. I've invited some people on to be our guests to do so, because they're guided meditations so that we all can, just grow a little bit, or huge leaps and bounds, depending on what we need and where we need to be. Or we can stay in bed and do them in bed, or we can stay on the beach. And Lisa, I congratulate you, because I find your photography has grown, has just oh my gosh, it's like you've now become a professional photographer. And I've seen the pelican. Was that a pelican? Oh my gosh, could you bring that photograph up, please? I don't think we'll do justice on here, but you have really found, I think, one of your gifts. So congratulations. Vanessa or Paige. Vanessa, we're coming to you.
Great. I had a bunch of notes that I was taking while you were all talking. And one of the first ones is I wanted to talk about existentialism a bit. I learned about it when I was in high school reading French novels in French class. And it was so powerful to me because it made me realize that all these things that I'd always look around, I was always called an oddball. My whole life, they told me I was a weirdo, I was strange, I would say these random things, like what if my eyeballs turned inside and could watch what was going on in there, or hair grew inwards rather than out. I would just ask random things because in an infinite universe, anything is possible. And when I read about existentialism and reading Sartre and Camus and Simone de Beauvoir and all these great writers, I started understanding that it is all a construct. There is nothing. There is no meaning out there. There is no set definition of anything. It's what we choose to create. And the only reason that life can have any meaning is because it ends, because of death. And death is something that, for me, reminds me daily how precious life is. It's going to be over soon, and I have no idea what's going to happen next, what next adventure there's going to be, but it's the nature of being finite, at least in this iteration, that makes it so that I want to do something worthwhile. And in terms of what worthwhile means, and in terms of beliefs that we were talking about, I guess I do have a belief, which is that the more we can spread love and compassion, starting with spreading it to ourselves and reaching it outwards, that to me is what is meaningful and is my belief, and is like, why not be like that on this planet if you can be? And there is so much suffering and misery. And so I can't blithely ignore that and think things are okay and fine, as you were all saying. It's that awareness of suffering that others are going through and the finite nature of life that give meaning and purpose. And I would say self-esteem, because the more that I am kind and loving to myself and spreading it out to others, and the more that I am reaching out to the world, the more I see myself as being of value, the way I see every other being having value. We all have value. The bee, the cockroach, the elephant, the president, all of us equally matter. We also equally don't matter, because ultimately we are all just these balls of dust, and it's just going to end, and then there will be whatever there will be. So I think that the way to trying to kind of link in how to build self-esteem, the notion of beliefs, and of how can you be okay when there's so much suffering. I think that you can improve self-esteem by noticing what's happening with you, not forcing yourself to be, I'm fine, everything's great. Even if you're not, as Lisa was saying, honoring yourself by not necessarily being okay. And acknowledging grief and suffering in the world, while also being in a place of support and asking for support when we need it, and of seeing that each one of us is here. I don't necessarily say there's some divine purpose or reason that we're here, but each one of us here can do something meaningful and valuable and enrich the life and world for other beings. That to me has the most value of being here. And in terms of engaging in the world, getting dirty to me is so important on multiple levels. Getting into the dirt, the messiness, not trying to make everything okay and just say, oh, well, if we're loving and compassionate, everything's fine. No, there's still trillions of animals who are killed every year. That's not okay. The suffering, the grief that we do to children, to women, to people of different ethnicities, indigenous people, so many groups, it's not okay. Getting into the messiness means we're acknowledging this and we're doing something. We're shining our light. We're working. We're reaching out. We're doing what we can to extend ourselves to help others. To me, why else be on this planet if it isn't to make life better for other beings? And getting dirty is important because otherwise you're glossing over and not naming the harm that's happening in the world, which I think is a great disservice to others. And it also manifests in the literal gut biome way, as Dorit was saying, that if we did have, non-toxic things that we're taking in from our air or water or soil or furniture or all of that, then our biomes would be equipped to deal with these issues that come up, even though the issues that come up in these pandemics are created by humans, what we're doing to animals and the animal agriculture business. So we do have to strengthen our immune systems. Right now, it's gotten to this point where the pandemic is so huge that probably a lot of our microbiomes aren't able to handle it. But I just always remember my French aunt, when I was a little kid, she loved preaching, and most of the time I tuned her out, like 99.9. But there was one time, and she did it in kind of a disgusting way, but she was making us something to eat, for my sister and me, on a chopping board, and there was a little bug on it, and she smushed the bug, which I am opposed to harming any being. And she said, "You Americans are too clean and sterile. You're going to catch things all the time by being too sterile." And I remember thinking, kind of a cruel way of doing it, smushing the bug, kind of disgusting to me, like to have dead parts mixed in with the food. So I don't think I ate what she made. I didn't necessarily like that part, but the part I did resonate with is that when we are too much in this bubble and too sterile, that is when we're more susceptible to things. And so we do need challenges, whether they be challenges to our immune system, challenges to our ways of thinking, belief systems, like Dorit, you were saying, the challenges to all of that. The contrasts are what give the richness and the meaning. We can't have the joy. We can't appreciate the joy without the pain. We can't appreciate dark without light, et cetera, et cetera. All these things, we need the full spectrum.
So you were talking about suffering, and I'm not talking about suffering, I'm talking about pain. Again, I repeat what my teacher, who has given me one of the greatest gifts, and he gave me several, but the one that I repeat all the time: pain is necessary for growth, for our knowledge of ourselves. It is what really is the pathway, I think, to self-knowledge, the quickest pathway. Most of us humans will not spend any time getting to know ourselves and learning who we are without pain. Suffering is optional. So I do not pay attention to suffering. Pain is necessary. Pain I pay attention to. Suffering is when you indulge in the pain and you use it as a whipping board, and you use it to get attention, and you use it to create drama and trauma in your life. Suffering is when you take pain and you make it master of our lives. That's the difference. So as Thich Nhat Hanh just brilliantly said, I really would like to offer this: pain is necessary, suffering is optional. And that is why I do not pay attention to suffering. I pay attention to people's pain. And because people's pains are my pain too, even if I don't understand why that it's painful to that person at the time, it's my job to then understand. But suffering, I do not take part in. Not in my own, and I don't expect anybody to take part in, but to call me on it, nor anybody else's. Because there are solutions. There are solutions for any and everything. We just need to reach out. Paige, please.
I've been wanting to share my new bamboo Band-Aids because I just thought they were so cool that they're bamboo. But here's what I just got in what you said, so powerful, is if we keep putting Band-Aids on where our pain is, we're not allowing a true healing. And I'm not saying a broken bone or even something that's gushing, but the point is, what I'm getting from this is to go into the pain, not resist the pain, feel the pain, and grow from the pain. That's what I got from this. And if you need a Band-Aid, check it out. These are bamboo. I just thought that was so cool. Really sustainable Band-Aids, right?
So I really like that you brought up the whole idea of the Band-Aid for the pain. So I think first what we need to do is start looking at pain as gifts and not as something to avoid at all costs and something to run away from and something to moan and groan about and to use to create drama and trauma in our lives. So can we have a look then at all the different Band-Aids we put on pain and why we end up suffering as a result? Lisa.
I'm the master of it. I'm just going to own that. How do I escape pain? I binge read. I love to read. I binge watch something. Maybe I turn to something for food, a beverage. Even though I do those things, I think that I've evolved in the sense that I'm aware that, okay. And then I have at this point in my journey feel like I have a pretty good gauge on the fact that the more I do that, the bigger the pain gets, so I've really been working on, especially with the quarantine, I've really become very acquainted with myself, got to know myself pretty well at this point. I mean, I know I can continually learn and grow. But all that traveling, I was just kind of running around and not really in tune with where I was and who I am. And this has been an opportunity to really listen to myself and learn and watch some of the things that I do in the absence of busyness, which is my number one distraction from dealing with my own pain. So.
And I say bravo, bravo, bravo to you. Because
thank you. I'll take it.
That was the true gift that we were given. The time to be quiet and sit down and feel it. Whatever it is we've been running away from, whether it's the joy or the pain, because they're both the same, just different aspects of it. Whether it's the needs that we have not met for ourselves in our own life, whether it's the confusion between a need and a desire, and it was forcing us to then look at them and realize that we have them topsy-turvy, and we need to really find time to find out why it is and how can we change that, and to come up with solutions. I thought this was the best time, the most amazing, generous gift we've ever been given for solutions. And yes, people are dying, and so will we. And there's nothing wrong with people dying at all, because that's part of who we are and that's we will live. The question is, are they dying for want of our attention? That's what I think we need to look at. And how can we then, instead of put a Band-Aid on it by just selecting somebody else who's going to do the same thing, how can we then really look at the problem, at the issue, and connect deeper with ourselves, so we'll have a deeper connection with people, so we will meet each other's needs without even realizing we are, because every time we meet our own needs, we're meeting other people's needs as well. So thank you for that, Lisa, because I think what you have done with this time is exactly the gift. You've taken the gift from it, and you have explored the gift and celebrated it, and that's why I bow to you. Thank you. So Vanessa, please.
I do a lot of those same things. I I binge read a lot. I definitely do that. I like to stay in bed and binge read. I pole dance. That for me is a definite way of having me not. What I tend to do is I obsess over things that I'm unhappy about. And I also tell myself, I have this thing I do. I have this image that there's some really healthy person that I could be I'm just not quite sure how to get that way. And I try to ask myself, what would that really healthy version of me do? And I'm always in a certain way telling myself that that really healthy person wouldn't put up with all this stuff that I'm putting up with in my life, relationships, whatever kind of thing, as if there is some kind of person who always knows what is the most, the healthiest, whatever that means. It's become this fascistic thing that I use to flog myself. It's something where I think I have this image that I'm not making healthy enough choices, meaning they're not self-nurturing enough. They're not asking for everything that I want, that I'm settling for less. And so then I start not only not knowing what I should be doing, but then obsessing over, well, what is the right way? And I'm not sure because I have this mindset that maybe is putting up with more than I should. And maybe, or would I become too rigid if it's just, this is my standard. If you can't meet it, bye-bye, you're done. Bye, bye, goodbye, goodbye. And I sometimes think, well, maybe I should be more that way. And that's okay if I'm alone because, for example, relationships, I'm starting to think really are need-based. I only need myself. I only need to be in love with myself. And is this something where being my vision of truly healthy would mean that I don't tolerate certain things, and that might mean that I would distance myself from a lot. So that's something that I obsess over. And when I don't want to obsess over it, I'll read, I'll pole dance, I'll go for long walks. I love escaping situations I don't like. I run away to be by myself. I just always like to curl up into my own space when I'm unhappy. And I also meditate a lot. So those are kind of my band-aids, but at the same time, I feel much clearer after I do these things. I put aside what I'm obsessing over and kind of let it just settle. And I feel like I get more clarity when I come back to it. And that's a way for me to settle down and like maybe focus more on the pain rather than the suffering, like that shift, that the suffering is optional and is kind of the drama and the story that we're telling about, oh, I'm suffering so much, as if I shouldn't have to suffer or I shouldn't have to feel pain, like as if I had a better life, there would be no pain. And the point is there always is pain. And I think about animals in slaughterhouses, children being tortured. I don't know there what the nuance or the difference would be, but I feel like they're probably living lives of unremitting pain. I'm not sure what they're learning from that or what they can learn from it, but I think that we have to acknowledge that there is a lot of pain out there in the world, and that when we're there for their pain and we're present for their pain and we witness their pain with compassion, that's the highest service I think I at least can do for that.
So I think what we can learn from it, if I might, is that we can learn that they're not the pain. It's just another experience like any other. The reason for the suffering is because we reject the pain. That's what causes the suffering. So what we have to do is really look at it and create a society where it's acceptable to say, I am not the pain. So this is an extremely painful experience I'm having now, or that I experienced yesterday. But I am not this, I am beyond this. I am more than this. This is a pathway to my deeper, most elevated inner self. And without this pain, I could not have gone internally and realized and recognized all these qualities of myself. And that's where I think the pain serves us. But because we resist it and we see it as something we must run away from or we must stop at all costs, that's when we suffer. Paige. Oh, yes, of course. Yes. Marshall Rosenberg.
Well, everything everyone said pretty much, well, I don't pole dance. I have done aerials arts. That was really fun. That was fun to build the core, but definitely comfort eat just in regards to that. Then I'm going to get to the book. But because I thought it'd be great for us to actually just go around round table and say what our solutions are, or what our comfort. Some of you have already mentioned a few things, like Vanessa. I take a walk. I go down to the beach. I breathe in the negative ions. I comfort eat. I go on social media too much. Maybe I have been having some weird sleep patterns, so that's one of the things I do. I'm a little bit off. I'm a lot off, so I get myself centered and back in this new year. And this is one. I was just going to say solutions for communication. I just love what this says. What is nonviolent communication? It's integral for things: consciousness, language, communication, knowing how to ask for what we want and how to hear others, even in disagreement, means of influence. So maybe we could do a whole, session on, show on this, on communication, on different communication, not just this, but different ways that we communicate powerfully. So I'm very excited to dive into this book. I want to thank my friend Renee Marinkovich, known as the Animal Hostage Negotiator. She's also in real estate, helping people find the perfect place for themselves. So I just wanted to say that I think this is going to be a really powerful book for my year and going forward for solutions.
So we did a show on this already. Vanessa, I don't know if you recall it. We had Tara Gardner on, and we had Dave Rubin on for this. Vanessa, I don't know if you recall.
Yes, absolutely. Right away, I was thinking Dave Rubin, because he does seminars in nonviolent communication.
And so does Tara Rubin, Tara Gardner. And I created and taught something called Peace-Based Communication Skills. You probably remember that, Lisa, because I really believe that language is why I studied, and I got my degree in linguistics, because I think our language is the root of all of this. It's the root of our pain. Our language is rooted in pain and continuing it and creating suffering. And I think Marshall Rosenberg's book is the perfect way to start. That's just a starter, because there's also NLP, neurolinguistic programming. That's where you go really deeper into it. But I think we all need to start with nonviolent communications. He has several books, by the way, and I strongly suggest them. And yes, we will definitely. And in the list that I put out for this year, I do remember I always put language in there because I just think that that's the thing. And that's what I work on the most with myself, is my own language. Because I think we language ourselves into feeling depressed and exhausted and tired, and we language ourselves into feeling vibrant and full of life and just joyous as well. So our language is the most basic form of communication with ourselves. Because every morning we get up, we think. And the first thought of the day, another thing that I learned from Thich Nhat Hanh was first thought. I also learned from when I was studying Tibetan work on death and dying, and I was going to a Tibetan place too. And it was that our first thought creates our entire lives. The first thought we had when we came in creates the entire lives, and our first thought that we have every morning. And so I, of course, jumped up and I said, me, I have a question. Then it means that the last thought is even more important. Because the last thought, when we leave the earth, if we believe in reincarnation, will decide the first thought we have in the next life. And he went into that, and we started talking about that. And I really thought, wow, it's interesting. The last thought we have, and I pay attention when I'm falling asleep. Was this my last thought? And I also very much pay attention in the mornings. And I also have made myself, I have actually conditioned myself into thinking the first thought every morning is thank you. I'm here again. Oh my gosh, have another chance. Every single morning. And it's not just automatic, because we do condition ourselves with our thoughts and our words, and it becomes automatic after a time, to the point where we can't even divorce ourselves from them. It just seems to be natural to us. So yes, I hear you, Paige. And yes, we will definitely explore the Workday book. This one particular book of Marshall Rosenberg. He has several, but this is the first introduction to nonviolent communication. And we have several books that we're going to be, oh, I love that hat. And we have several books that we'll be recommending this year. And I'd like the members of the panel to write together a list of books we'd like to recommend to each other as well, and to the audience during as the year progresses. So to wrap up, 30 seconds, please. I'm starting with Lisa.
I want to thank Paige for bringing up such a good guidepost, especially right now. I mean, I feel like this time is, we could all learn how to communicate in a nonviolent way. I think we would better for ourselves, as Dorit talked about, how we communicate with ourselves too is really important. So I would just want to thank each of you for the wisdom I gained, Dorit for bringing us together and bringing up the death and dying, and Vanessa for your just illuminations on just the beauty of what you shared about that experience with your aunt in France. I found that even though that was, I'm sure, disturbing, it was also illuminating and rich. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, and so again, we go into the fact that everything painful at the time is actually one of the greatest gifts we've been given. So with that, we go to Vanessa.
Thank you all so much. I just feel so vibrating and alive with all the richness of our discussions. I wanted to bring up two things. The first is, I remember we were doing the inspection of my house, and I was with my realtor broker, who's one of my closest friends, and we were talking about asbestos, and I touched something and then was like, oh shoot, that might have asbestos. So I said to him, oh my God, am I going to die? And he goes, eventually. And so that's just become this big joke for us of like, oh, is that going to kill me? Eventually. Just having that playfulness and that lightness around that was just really a wonderful moment for me. And the other thing is that I did a plant medicine deep meditation a little while ago, and I was in this world that looked like the Amazon. It was very jungly. I was in some kind of boat down the river, and there was no language. It was a time before words because we didn't have need. It was joy and dancing. There were no attachments because that also was coded to me as need. It was just, we were all there together, collectively dancing and being joyful, and we didn't need to communicate. And the message I got was that language came into being because we started feeling we needed things. So that was my thing about language.
Paige.
Okay, so, we always are going to be taking a closer look at how we can compost more and consume less. So I did want to bring that into the game. We are continuing on with our journey of Zero Waste Challenge through January. Stay tuned for more information on that. So I just wanted to encourage people to get their own compost going. If you have any questions, you can always put it in our chat or reach out individually. Last thing I want to say in regards to this book and communication, I really love what it says right here, which is empathy, collaboration, authenticity, and freedom. And I think everybody wants more of that this year. And last but not least, enjoy. Enjoy. Enjoy.
One last time, please, Paige. One last time, please. Can you hit?
One last time.